There we go. I think it says we're live.
Oh,
Okay.
it does say that.
Let's see. 15, 21, 27 people. But you have to say hi or it doesn't even count.
Yes.
We have
to. I can't really tell until they say hi. Oh, Dawn would be the first one. I should have known.
Dawn.
Yay. And Kathy is here. Virginia Lee. Awesome.
Oh. That's great.
All right. Well, we are very excited because we just realized today that this is the 5th 5x5.
You can imagine what Mystie has done with this.
I thought last year was the 5th.
2020 was our first finisher. We don't have any
finisher. Okay.
Yeah, we had the idea in 2019,
Okay.
but 2020 was the first year. I mean, when we started, we didn't even know 2020 was like going to be a thing, but it makes it easy to count.
Yes,
that's true.
So this is our 5th opportunity to finish a 5x5.
There you go.
And it's 2025, which is what 5x5 equals.
It's
so
like math paradise.
I know. Have you seen those? There's like a bunch of people doing all the math of 2025.
I have
like,
seen that.
25 is a square number and doing all the nerdy things. I love it. Makes me feel
really squares good. Of squares or whatever.
So fun. And so I thought, well, I mean, obviously that means I have to do 5x5s, right?
No,
the 5th year.
No one is expecting you to do that.
That's good.
Especially unless you're going to do like 2 picture book categories, which would be okay.
That would work.
Maybe you need to read to your grandbaby.
Read to my grandbaby. There we go.
There you go. I think then you could possibly do it, but the books that you choose are not always.
Well, that's the other thing. I was looking at the books I've already committed to. It's like, no, that's not happening.
Yes. Mystie's modern math. What is it now? I can't remember. Modern
Mystie.
There we go. Yes. The gigantic books that you can all read along with her. And the reading plan is going to come out today, right?
It is out. So while someone else is talking, I will find that link.
Wonderful.
But yes, so a little bit of background if you are new here, and we do have a bunch of new people to the 5x5 challenge and to Sistership, which is super fun.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Well, that is an excellent idea. I'm Mystie Winkler. I was homeschooled and my husband was homeschooled. And then we have homeschooled our 5 kids. We have 2 graduates, 3 still at home, although one's a senior. So we only have half of a year left with her at home. And then 1 grandbaby. So that's me.
I am Abby Wall, and I'm a homeschooling mom, and I have 1 married child who's no longer living with my daughter's about ready to get ready to leave for her mission trip to Australia. So that's coming up very soon in a month, and just homeschooling and trying to keep up with all of the activities that my boys are in. And my twins just turned 15 and bought themselves a pickup together. Really working out well for them. And it's a good thing because it's going to get terrible gas mileage, and they're going to share that too. So, but it's, we have to get 100 hours each of driving. So that is going to be taking a lot of my time, because when you have
I have wondered about twin driving instruction.
Yeah. Luckily, they are really good drivers. Yeah. So it's like way less stressful. This has not always been the case. I have, but 3 out of 5 ain't bad. And they are really wanting to do it, which I have found that the kids who want to do it the most are my best drivers. Yeah. So it's good. So they've already been driving me around, which is good. But that's my life right now, is I think a lot of audiobooks in the car is what's going to be happening. So
I've had such a hard time lately because we're finishing our hours because our son can take the test, I think, next month. But the radio in my car is breaking, you guys. It's like the most depressing thing ever to drive around with no music. It's terrible.
Well, I haven't used the radio in the car for forever.
Oh,
Yeah, but you don't really listen to music, so
I listen to music when I drive. I like to
not on the radio. I've never.
Well, some of us are old school, and
that's right. Well, it's like I have a really old car. Like that's that's all you have to do. Okay, my name is Brandy Venzel, and I have 4 children, and I have a 3rd adult child as of New Year's Eve. I mean, she's still in high school, but she turned 18. So we only have 1 non-adult child left. So I've got 2 high schoolers that I'm homeschooling, 2 that have graduated. 1's married, 1 still lives at home going to college. And that's us. So.
All right. And so the 3 of us make up Schole Sisters.
Oh, right. Yes.
And we have a podcast for homeschool moms. And it is about homeschooling and classical education, but also about self-education and becoming, reading, and thinking wise mothers ourselves.
Yeah.
That's really the goal. Even if we're talking about homeschooling and education, it's not about just the practical, like how to nitty gritty. It's really about becoming educated ourselves while we have taken on this project of educating others. So we have lots of moms who are actually done homeschooling and are still in our community. I know a few have just joined recently, and you are very welcome.
Yes.
You don't have to be actively homeschooling to be in Sistership. Right. You have to want to become more educated yourself, which is something every age needs to be doing. And that's why we have the 5x5 challenge.
That's right.
So the 5x5 challenge is my fault. I was thinking of my own personal goals at the end of 2019 and kind of feeling bad about the number of books I had bought versus the number of books that I had read. And I read just a particular sort of book, but I would purchase books in all kinds of different categories. I'm like, well, if I keep buying these books about history, about theology, then maybe I should read them. And my dad used to have this saying when I was growing up, that if you want to know about something, if you want to learn something, go check out 5 books from the library. That's step 1. And so I said, so I'm going to pick 5 categories and read 5 books in that category. That's learning something about that subject. Get 5 books. I don't even need to go to the library. I'm going to my personal library and picking 5 books. And so that's what I did. And I told Brandy and Abby about it. And they said, let's all do that. And so the 5x5 challenge was born, and it has been so much fun.
It really has been.
It's my favorite reading challenge of all time. And I will just say it's the only one I will probably ever be able to do or accomplish because I'm a rebel at heart and cannot follow other people's lists. But we'll talk about
maybe that should have been on our list, like works for rebels.
Yeah. I can even rebel against myself and I still get to do it.
Works for people who don't want to follow other people's directions.
Or even my own.
Which is like all of us.
That's right.
That is also a part of the Schole Sisters story.
Yeah, it's true. True story.
And so the 5x5 challenge, the basics of it are that you pick 5 categories and you read 5 books in each of those 5 categories.
Yes.
Right.
And that is as far as the direction goes. And everyone, so I know some people now that we're kind of finishing last year's and starting a new one are like, but I need to, like, I didn't do what I planned. I need to change the categories or whatever to have finished. I've read enough books, but the categories don't quite fit. I rearranged all my categories. It provides a direction. But then you look back and like I had politics and economics separate, but I had read 3 in one and 2 in the other. So I'm like, oh, look, those go together. That is a part of how the challenge works. It's not even a hack. It just is how it works. And we're going to talk
feature.
You're not cheating. And this isn't about perfectionism.
That's right.
That's right. So we are going to talk next about 5 things that we love about the 5x5 challenge. Yeah. And some of that will come out in the things that we love. And the first one is that it is flexible and personal. Like, none of us are telling you the books that you ought to read.
Right.
Like, we're going to have everyone read XYZ or this whole list, or even everyone needs to read books this old or books this long, or and if you want to do other reading challenges that are a lot more specific, you can also do the 5x5 because they fit right within the 5x5. We can just fold those in and you can at least finish a 5x5 even if you don't finish the other challenges.
That's right. That's true.
Winning.
And you can move your categories around. You can plan everything out. But then if you don't read what you planned, which like most people don't.
Yeah.
You can still adapt it, and you can have a strong reading year one year, and then the next year is maybe a postpartum year. You're not going to read it the same amount, but you can still do a 5x5. So it varies and adjusts based on where you're at. And you can still be intentional with your reading, because that's the thing, is reading is not going to happen by accident, especially not reading that matters.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, it's not a reading challenge that forces you to jump into the deep end, but it's just enough prompting that you have to actually get in the pool.
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So we've been getting some really great feedback from all of you, for those who finished, and it's been so lovely to read each and every one. And so I have a few that I'd like to share when we share these things. So Deborah Ike said that the challenge helped me stay focused on reading, even when that meant plodding along slowly. I like having a plan for my reading while keeping things flexible enough to change a few titles as needed. Right.
Yeah.
And I just love some of these things. Another one is from Kimberly, and she learned that, like her children, she too can read multiple books at the same time, and that Charlotte Mason's philosophy also applies to me as an adult learner. I think the 5x5 challenge is a wonderful opportunity for me to model the literary life for my daughters. I love that they are getting to witness my excitement and wonder as I pursue the same type of education that I'm trying to give them, right? I mean, that is just so beautiful. And this is that flexible and personal thing that we get to share with our kids and those in our family.
Yes. That's a good point, actually. We've had a few people asking about reading multiple books at a time. And yes, the 5x5 does not have to be done where you read like one whole book before you start the next. I think most of it, I don't know about you guys. My plan of attack has always been at minimum to have one from each category going. Because I find, I don't know, I think one time I tried to do one category at a time and I was kind of bored. Like it was too much overkill, you know what I mean? With all thinking about one thing for too much. So actually spreading it out through the whole, like spreading each category through the whole year was a more pleasant way to do it.
Yeah. I kind of do that. I try not to have more than one in one category going at the same time. I always have more than
interesting
going at the same time, except for the really long books. You know, like
right.
Every year I do a systematic theology. And so that's usually spread out and read slowly over a long time.
Yeah.
And so it's not that I'm not going to read any other, quicker, shorter books in my theology category while that one's going. But then I also always have like a few print books and a few audiobooks. So like together, that makes a pretty long list.
Yeah.
Books being read concurrently. But the second very fun thing about the 5x5 challenge is that it is finishable. Mm-hmm. You can read 25 books this year. And 25 books is actually a significant number of books. It's a number of books that matters. It's a number of books that's not going to happen by accident. And yet it's completely doable.
Yeah.
Unlike, the 50 book, 100 book challenge. You can read 25 books this year, even if it's a stretch. Audiobooks count. We're not counting the length or the whatever, but just getting your feet wet with some intentional reading. And then also, even that process of finishing at the end and changing up your categories is a process of evaluating how your reading year went, which is very beneficial. So the finishing isn't even just about reading the 25 books. It really is a part at the end doing that finisher survey or just thinking about how it went. Did you finish? And that process of evaluating how the year actually went, what you actually read, why, what do you want to change moving forward? It's a part being able to iterate your reading life and take the next step of growth or even pulling back and adjust as needed.
Yeah, some of the comments. Nikki Smith, she says, I continues to see how reading good books enables me to read even better books. I continue to enjoy learning and growing and expanding my mind throughout the year. Right? That's one of the great things about this too, is like where we start is not where we always finish. And then I love Rachel Nystron's. I learned the importance of having books in a varying levels of difficulty so that there's always something at the ready to, depending on my mental capacity. And then, here's the one, Connie Williamson. I have a lot of books that I read and the 5x5 helps me stay on track and actually finish them. Also, this is the first year I have listened to the entire Bible on audio, Old Testament once and New Testament twice. If nothing else, the Word of God really needed to take precedence, and it has been a refuge and a strength throughout the ups and downs of 2024, right? We are always going to encourage everyone to be reading the Word of God primarily. And we have seen people who count books. We've counted the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? These are different ways that you can do it. If you're really doing an in-depth study of the Psalms, like you could count that. Like these are the things that we want to do, but we do want to encourage everyone to be reading their Bible regularly.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Okay. So our third thing is the 5x5 stretches you without overwhelming or bossing you. So, which kind of goes back to our flexibility thing, right? But we're not, in the past, we have done options like pre-filled plans or whatever, but those things were just for inspiration or because someone actually wanted to know what we would put in this category or whatever. But it's very open-ended and it's very not bossy. The hardest part is that you have to boss yourself. And for a lot of us, that is a big challenge all by itself without us even doing anything else. But it's also, I think it can be not overwhelming because, what were we were talking about at the end of the podcast season, like, here's this little, very short book that you could add to this category. You can choose something that's easier to read. Like I moved this year. I did more easy reading than I've done in a long time, but it's just like what I was capable of. So I could have gotten overwhelmed by some massive reading challenge with lots of heavy things, but I just instead, I was like, I think I'm going to read, Stephen Lawhead. I'm going to read fantasy and historical fiction for a while, right? And so it was just what I was up for at the time. And we'll go back to harder books when we're at a different stage of life, right? So
yes. I love Leslie Erickson's. So she said there's always time to fit in a book, even if it's audio. Trying to do the challenge motivated me to be filling my time with things that would be edifying and help me grow as a Christian. And she said she started off with a list in 2024 and she only did 2 of the books that she planned. And she will probably leave some categories open this year because she liked being able to add books that other people were reading, and especially from our podcast segment called Schole Every Day, where she got a lot of recommendations. So realize that even if you make a great plan and you only finish 2, you can still do the challenge. It didn't boss her around.
I've always done where I leave 1 to 2 slots on every category because I like that whole, you're talking to someone about what you're reading and they're like, oh, you should read this. But then you feel like I can't slot it in because I made this plan. Leave room for.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I write mine with the friction pens. Thinking change things, and plus the books talk to one another too.
Right, yeah. They do.
So usually one book will mention another one, and it's like, oh, that one's going on the list.
Yeah. So Elaine said that this challenge has been the most flexible and encouraging. I know that I can fill it in with a hodgepodge of easy fiction I read this year, but I enjoyed setting a goal and reading harder and better books and working towards it. And then Mystie Linton also said, I already knew I preferred fiction and specifically quests over nonfiction, but seeing it on the 5x5 made it more visible. So, so the nonfiction that she did read was very rewarding and encouraged her to continue with homeschooling the kids. So like there's things that we can do that can help prompt us to do these other things, right? It's not necessarily right. We know what we prefer, so we have to be on our guard. That this is what helps us, right? That we get that wide variety.
Okay, number 4, the 5x5 helps you read relevant books without getting obsessed. Or actually, I think I would say for those of us who get obsessed, it helps control or limit your obsession if you let it. Because I do think some of us who are saying, well, I'm going to do a 5x17, like that is actually just part of the obsession, right? So by saying, I mean, I'm not criticizing Mystie, but since she's here, so, but I mean, obviously, if you can read more than 25 books in a year, that's amazing. Like, do it. That's not, we would never ever tell you to limit that. But I'm thinking more about how we can get obsessed with categories, right? And we can get really off balanced sometimes because we're just always only going to read in this one favorite topic area or whatever. And so I don't know, I could get really obsessive even about super weird things. So it's just been really good for me to say, I'm going to limit myself to 5 books. I'm going to read other things. I'm only going to let myself read 5 books on this topic. And I can use the topic again next year.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that I can only read 5 books in my whole life on this topic, but I can spread it out so that I'm not becoming this really narrow-minded person where I'm just reading about the facts that giants are real. Like that's not a good way to spend the bulk of my time. And so, you know, like it just kind of helps with those kinds of weird things that some people maybe do. That's a good point too. Bethany said she can get off balance between fiction and nonfiction. And it's funny though, because I can do it either way. Like I'll go through times where I'm way obsessed with fiction, but then I'll go through times where I'm like, oh, I haven't read anything that wasn't allowed to my kids that was fiction like this whole year. I mean, just so it could go either way. So for me, I feel like we're hitting the topics that we want to hit, right? We're doing the reading that we want to be doing, but we're also kind of limiting and balancing it out so that it doesn't become an unhealthy obsession. Probably also helps with the book budget. Slows down the purchasing a little bit. So those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah. And I think too, like, we have categories that maybe we can easily binge read, and that's not a good thing either, right? Like the book gluttony is not a good thing. And so this kind of slows us down a little bit. Like, okay, well, I can read more of those, but I have to first finish this category because I'm putting this one off, right? This is a great way. Mary Krieger said that the 5x5 challenge reinvigorated my desire to learn for my own joy and growth. It was the motivation I needed to give my free minutes to reading that produced growth rather than just reading current books or mindlessly scrolling. And she's talking a little bit here about Sistership, but the discussions on the 5x5 accountability group in Sistership reminded me that I'm truly not alone and that there are women who are like me doing the hard work of continuing to grow our minds in order to faithfully live out God's will in our lives. And then Blossom is a great member and she always has interesting thoughts. So she just said books, literature, and stories are an anchor when life is chaotic. And without that anchor, I would have been so far afloat this year. And so I think too, knowing the season you're in is really helpful. And sometimes it's okay to have a lot of fiction or stories or books that just comfort us because, and that's not necessarily obsession. Maybe it's just something that you actually really need for hard times. And I think that's a wonderful way to focus your attention rather than, I don't know, what do they call it? The kids these days, doom scrolling. I don't know what it means. I think they use it a lot. So I'm gonna throw it out there. If I'm wrong, correct me.
I've always thought it was kind of like obsessively reading bad news, but I don't know if that's true. It's just how my brain has always interpreted it. I've never looked it up.
Yeah, I mean, picking up a book and reading great, fun books is way better than that. So, because news is not Schole, Brandy.
I mean, suit yourself, Abby. News is just history being written right now. Don't worry, I don't count it in my 5x5.
All right.
So
go ahead, Mystie.
Yeah, the fifth reason that we love the 5x5 challenge is that it makes all of us more whole and well-rounded. By reading multiple books in a category, multiple books in several categories, we are self-educating. And you really see, if you put in that much reading time and that variety of reading time, the books really do talk to one another. They can't help it. You will experience that. And then that's it creates its own pull and its own motivating force to keep going because it really does get so interesting. Categories within the same books within the same category obviously talk to one another,
right?
But so do the books across categories. And then often you'll see that your categories for next year are springboards off of the previous year. And it is this just continual process, growth process. And it's super fun.
It is super fun.
Laura Hayes is, she said, I also learned that reading is important work and not a guilty pleasure. And when you're reading good books that are fitting you to be a better mom, educator, and person. And I just love that. And here were her categories, which may not seem obvious that these are making her a better educator, mom, and person, but they did. Murder and mystery, laborious lives, which were biographies, tremendous tomes, and she read some big books, let me tell you. Antiques and ancients and work and whimsy. So those are just some fun categories. We love naming fun categories, or I do. And then
my goal is for each category to be a pop 80s song.
Like I did that one 80s song. It was really fun. Yeah. Mystie wouldn't know them because she doesn't know music. You never win. Name that.
We should do it sometime and make it a playlist.
Okay. I wanted to share one more thing. Jody Mesher said that I was drawn into the challenge by considering exactly what I'm doing with my leisure time and the idea of Schole being leisure time with the intention of pursuing goodness, truth, and beauty. It is so different from mindless scrolling or binge watching, things I gravitated toward the end of my long days with children. Mm-hmm. So I was also convicted about being the lead learner in my home as my children grow, being the kind of person that they want to talk and discuss things with that matter. I have 2 teenagers and feel the shift over their independence from me, which both excites and saddens me. Even in my 40s, I can continue learning, shaping my ideas, and articulating them clearly, not only for my own development, but also create connection with my family and community. This challenge has been so refreshing to my spirit in ways that technology never could. Right. I loved this. Right. It is. We want to be able to engage with our teens and young adults as they get older. We want to be, I don't know, somebody who's interesting to talk to and has ideas to think about. And I loved that. So, we all have a long way to go. None of us are where we want to be. And one thing you will learn about the 5x5 is you will think, oh man, I really read some great books. And then you think, man, I really need to read some more great books. It's a never-ending cycle. So I think that the 5x5 challenge is something that you can continually do. And it can be just such a blessing to you. And because it is so flexible and because it is so personal. And I just love this part of it. And last one, I promise, Heather Gorsuch, which is, she's doing amazing things, and she's going to lead a Norms and Nobility book club this year. But she says that being part of a community of women who strive to cultivate their minds by reading deeply has been life-changing for me. I've learned how wonderful it is to surround yourself with people moving towards similar goals and encouraging one another along the way and making reading all the more sweeter. So, yes, so that's some of the wonderful things that you all said to us, but that we know are true as well. Oh, there you are, Heather. Hi, Heather.
Yeah, I will say for those moms who still have just homeschooling everybody or haven't started homeschooling, and you know, the teen or adult children scene is in the future. When you read now and your kids know you're reading and interested in other things besides them, it takes some of the pressure off of them.
Yes.
And it is the most awesome thing to get texts from your adult children who have moved out and moved on because they read something and they knew that you would like it. It's so fun. And then you're like, oh, you're reading something.
Yeah. I feel like this is where our challenge dovetails with Charlotte Mason's whole theory of mother culture, where, well, I shouldn't say it's hers. She published the article on it that was written by somebody else in her magazine. But one of the things that the gal who wrote that article talks about is this idea. Well, I'm just going to paraphrase because I haven't read it in a while and I've kind of made up in my mind how this works. So we'll see how accurate it is. But basically this idea that like when you have little kids, you yourself are usually young. And so if you're not careful and you don't read, then your children kind of outgrow you because you are still like the maturity level that you were when you had them. And then they need a more mature counselor than they needed when they were, 3 years old or whatever. And so I feel like reading is one of the easiest ways to become that counselor and comrade and friend and whatever, but to become what they need when they are, 20 years old and launching out into the world or whatever. Because I look back and I'm like, man, like I don't really know much other than what I read in a book. Not really, it's all come from the reading and the discussions we had about reading over all these years.
Yeah. Yeah. We were recently on a camping trip and my boys we were talking about things, and this other young man ask questions. And then apparently later they went off somewhere to do, their own adventures. And the other little boy just was impressed by that their mom knew something. And sometimes it takes other people to tell, to notice
your
things
own children.
for your own children, because they're just in the water with you and they know it's wet. And then sometimes they just think, oh, actually my mom might know a few things. And it's really encouraging when that happens. And then they tell you about it, which was really sweet. So you may not, when they're in their teenage years, you may still, they may think you don't know anything, but
but their friends might notice that you know something.
Their friends might notice, oh, actually, maybe your mom
at least one thing.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to talk a little bit more about the details of kind of getting the support you need for the 5x5 challenge, right? We always encourage people to shop their shelves, get the books off that you've purchased, books that you started last year. Totally, if you finish them in 2025, totally count for this year, right? If you started a big book at the, middle or end of last year, totally counts. You can have broad categories, you can have narrow categories, right? It doesn't really matter. These are all things. If you need more support or accountability, if you are a Sophie member, I run a weekly accountability challenge group where every week we check in with one another and talk about what we're reading. We basically set an intention for the week, what we're going to read, or maybe we have a time goal for what we're going to read. And if you think that you might need that, you are welcome to join us. We get a lot of feedback that's really, really helpful to keep it in our mind's eye. It's so much fun to get to know people online, and we are often reading some of the same books, or, oh, are you doing this book club, participating in this? You're like, oh, yes, I am. And it's super fun. So I really, really love that group. And I think I post, I'm going to get interrupted by my husband. Sorry, I hear him. Where's your mother? Sorry. So anyway, if you would just excuse me and somebody else can maybe talk about this for just a second. Because apparently no one listens to me.
This is really my favorite part of our whole life.
Well, I want to say that one of the fun things that we do to help encourage you to actually finish the 5x5 is send you a finisher pin with a little bookmark and sticker. So you get a little fun thing in the mail when you finish, a little acknowledgement, a little, kind of join the club swag. You do have to be a Sophie member to get the swag. Anyone can finish and do the survey, and we encourage you to do the survey. But then if you are a Sophie, you get the little stuff, since it does cost us money to make them and then send them. So you have to, but even if you just join for December or join for January to get the finisher pin, you can do that.
And it's our new logo.
And it's
our new colors. I love it.
Actually, when Abby comes back, I'm going to go. I forgot to grab the finisher pack that we'll be sending out. But I just put the finisher survey link in the chat. So there's still time. It's going to be up through Monday. And then we'll grab those addresses and start sending those out. So far this year, we have had 84 finishers complete the survey. That's Sophie and non-Sophie. That's all finishers complete the survey. In 2023, we had 80. So we're already more than we had last year. But when I saw those numbers, I said, ooh, I think my goal would be for us to have at least 100 finishers for our 5th 5x5. So I think we should do it. And so far this year, we have over 550 people who have signed up to download the new chart, which means that's probably even more than what's in Sistership, because in Sistership, you can just download it. So we have more than 550 people filling out those 5x5 forms.
It's amazing.
You can finish it, and we can send out a record number of pins.
That's right.
Do it while I still have help mailing packages at home.
Jessica, Mystie actually ordered all previous year buttons as well, and we are making that available for people to order online. Those ones you do have to pay for, but anyone who forgot to fill out a finisher survey, or if you lost it or it broke, you know, we have replacements this year. So there you go for that.
She's getting the
pin
to show. She's going to show the. I know.
You've been stingy and not sharing it with us. Sorry, my neighbor came over and was asking for a specific type of vacuum seal bag that we have for our fancy vacuum sealer. So apparently I'm the only one who can do that. And so my husband is like, I just need you for 30 seconds. So I apologize.
It's okay. But why don't you tell them about your upcoming session that you're going to do?
Oh, yeah. Okay. This is the other thing I'm going to do is for many people who are doing their first time 5x5, or if you haven't been maybe successful in the past, I'm going to do a little meetup workshop where we all get together and discuss the 5x5. I'm going to share how I'm going to be tracking this year, which is in this cool little journal that I made. And I even put in like the sheets. So, and I'm going to talk about, I printed off all the little possibilities of book covers.
Okay, that's cool.
Mystie showing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the nitty gritty details and helping people. If you have specific questions about your own group, you can get feedback on your 5x5 challenge, right? If you've picked like a Russian category and everything has over 1,000 pages, I'm probably going to tell you, you might want to rethink that because the Russians are really depressing and that's a lot of pages, right? So some of these things. So if you want more of a discussion about it, that's what I'm going to be doing. And that is next week on the 10th, I believe. We're going to do it Friday afternoon. You can either join the discussion live or you can watch it later. And so I would love to take you through that, but I just have some, ideas for success. I've been doing this, the 5x5 accountability group. So I actually have some really great hot tips, not just for myself, but from running this for the last 5 years. I always successfully win the challenge, and I want you to successfully be a winner like me. And
oh my gosh, not to brag, but
I mean, you can be a winner too. Let me coach you on this. I can take you to the successful places that you need to go.
Okay, so one thing that I'm excited about, since I ordered brand new pins with this year's pin, is that they'll all be the same size.
Oh,
and the same shape, because I ordered them all the same instead of forgetting what I ordered and having it be different every year.
The square and the bigger one, and
it's still all the same design as it was that year. So it's that year's pin.
Okay,
all the same size, and then this is this year's pin, which I can't get my camera to actually focus on what I want it to focus on. There it is.
It's our new color scheme, though, so it'll look very good. Yeah.
And then you'll get a postcard with it, and a bookmark that says what Schole is, and a sticker. So it'd be a fun.
So you too can make yourself a cute little journal.
That's right. It is a cute journal.
Yes. Good. Okay. So yes, we have 4 Sophies, which is our paid side of our membership, which you can still post about your 5x5 in the main feed. There is no rules against that. Or if you have other questions and you want to get feedback from, anybody, you are welcome to do that. if you want a little bit more accountability, if you want a little bit more focus, we have the weekly accountability group. We also have book clubs that are member led. And then also Mystie is doing a book club with her massive modern titles. And then we will have quarterly meetups where we talk about what we're reading. And we, instead of it just being us three, it will be most likely just Mystie and I, because Brandy likes to yeah, it's fine. Brandy has
a lot of slacker.
But I was gonna say those are Mystie's books.
This is the book stack.
Insane.
This is enough. This 5 is for the 5th year. There we go.
Yeah.
Not 5 categories, but these 5 books are in honor of our 5th year, even though I picked them before I knew it was our 5th year. It's going to be fun. And you don't have to do all of them. Yeah. If you just want to pick one, all the book club posts will be separate. So this is what I'm doing. Pick 1, pick 2, do all 5, make it a category all its own. Mm-hmm. Make each book all a category its own. If you are just getting started reading.
This year is also a great year to become an annual Sophie member because it is a t-shirt year. So every summer we do summer swag, and you have to be a member for the 3 summer months, or if you're an annual member, you automatically get a t-shirt. And so we are going to make a very cool t-shirt for you all. And you also get access to like replays of workshops, all of our past trainings and things like that. So there's a lot going on in the Sophie membership. So you should consider it. But we will be doing, quarterly meetups and then maybe a few extras with just me. I'm planning on doing a few more specific ones about reading, and there's definitely going to be one about commonplacing and a literature class. There's some really fun things coming up for our Sophies. And
I just want to go back because Sharon said she missed the part about the journal. But the journal, you're going to explain that in your session, right?
So next week on Friday, I'm going to just share about how I set up a reading journal for myself, because I find that having a place where I can record what I'm reading and where I'm keeping my 5x5 keeps me from losing the piece of paper, which I have done in past years and then had to go back and try to remember everything. So, because, life. So I am, happy to walk you through that for people who want to do a little bit more support, or they want to get themselves set up for finishing and winning the 5x5 challenge, because the 5x5 challenge is
the way you add winning.
Winning. I mean, reading is winning.
And I just added to the calendar kickoff meetup to be more like Zoom than like a stream like this. For anyone interested in this book stack. Again, one or all will do a kickoff. The first posts, the first assignments are all the week of January 14th, I think is the Tuesday. I'm going to post the chapters on Tuesdays. And so we'll do a meetup and just talk about tackling big books, about strategies for reading more than one intense book at a time, and why I picked these books.
Good. Fun. Mystie, the Truth of Things books is hard.
That's true. The Truth of Things, it is the smallest book we are reading, and it is out of print, which I didn't really realize when I picked it. I bought mine last year, and I was looking at my shelves and not Amazon when I picked this book. So at this point, Amazon's used copies are gone. And then for a while, Abe Books still had some. Yesterday when I looked, there was one on eBay.
Who's it by?
It is by Marion Montgomery.
Okay.
He is called the last of the Southern agrarians.
Oh, so, interesting.
And so it is available for digital borrowing on Internet Archive. I would think that a university library should carry it if you have that available to you, or if your local library does interlibrary loan with a university. I know I checked, we're in the same town as University of Idaho, and they have it. And then I asked my son if his college, New St. Andrews College, had it. They don't have it on hand, but they can get it through interlibrary loan.
I might have to get it from my university library.
Check that way.
Yeah.
But then the Internet Archive digital option is there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other option is, so this is in an education category, if you had each of these in a separate category. The other option would be instead to do Heather's Norms and Nobility, her book club. She's also going to spend a year or about 40 weeks going through Norms and Nobility. So that would be like an equal kind of replacement.
Yes, for sure.
For sure. Wonderful.
I was so excited because I thought I found it on mycatholicbooksandmedia.com.
And
it said $23.70. And I was like, that's a decent price for an out of print, but they're out of stock. It just looks like it in the search. Sad.
Yeah, that is a bummer. I
influencing trends again. On
I didn't think about like, oh, how many copies exist?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, we are just right about the hour, and this has been perfect. I haven't seen any questions, but I didn't put the Q&A thing. I didn't add that. So we will.
It's amazing. You guys didn't ask any questions because we didn't let you.
Well, if anyone does have any questions, we can be here for a few more minutes. But you can also ask in Sistership, and somebody will be able to answer your questions, because we have such a great range of people who have done this for the past 5 years, or maybe a fewer, but it's been so good. So Sistership really is full of people who are so wise and give great counsel, and no drama. Thank you again for no drama. Just great discussions, even when we have differing opinions. It's wonderful. Okay, so my meetup, which is more than just hot tips, Samantha, it is going to be a little bit more about like designing your first 5x5, or you know, if you need a little bit of help, if you've been doing this for a few years and you're a little bit at a loss. So mine, I think it says on Sophie Events. You'll have to go to Sophie Events, and it will be 5x5 challenge meetup January 10th. And it's setting up your 5x5 challenge, and it'll be in your time zone. But for me, since I'm Pacific time, it's going to be Friday, January 10th from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. So whatever time zone you are in, that is where you will. So you just RSVP to that, and you'll get a notification, and then you can join me live. And we will be discussing with all of us. So it'll be kind of like a Zoom meetup, so that you can ask your questions live. We'll record it, and it'll be posted in Sistership, which is private, and nobody can just, you know, randomly watch it. So there you go. Oh, what are our categories? Yes. Well, Mystie's massive books. I think I'm going to read some of them, not all of them. But I did get The Wonderful Works of God, but I did not get it from Westminster, which was way cheaper. So I did bite the bullet and buy it from Amazon, which was way more expensive. I was like, that's what I get for jumping the gun.
It's such a good book, though. You'll like.
Yeah.
I just finished it.
It's a beautiful book. So that one for sure. And then I have audio of the Basic Economics and Bleak House. So I will try to do those on audio as well. And I already had Paul Johnson's Modern Times, and I think I started it a few years ago when Mystie would never stop talking about it. But since she decided to narrate the whole book to me, I just stopped reading it and waited for her to tell me things. So I might go back and listen to it now that it's been a few years. Sorry, Mystie, just throwing you a left.
I was telling my friend that, so either I am going to just be, well, so I decided I have a local book club that's going to read these too, with my daughter-in-law in it. And then my sister online, we're going to talk about it. So like, I have so many, like I have to read these books now because I've got so many commitments to read them, but it's the same reading is going to count for all these different things. So that just scratches my efficiency itch. And I said, so I'm going to either actually get tired of talking about modern times. And so Matt and my local friends and you guys will not hear about it at all because I'll be talked out, or it'll be just that much more. And I have a lot of things that everyone needs to know. And so we'll see. We'll see if I get burnt out talking about him.
Probably not, because you talk to everyone about him anyway, right? Like, I mean, I don't know about you. When you get a really good book going, don't you just bring it? You just like, let me see how I can bring up this in the conversation again. Have I told you about this book that I'm reading? I think I've told other people about it. I don't know.
I think the thing is, I read Modern Times in 2020.
Yeah.
And so it like seemed to connect all the time to everything. Cause it's like, oh, none of this happened out of the blue. This is actually all related. And it was like seeing that this is all a stream, not just out of the blue. Crazy times. Yeah. So I printed out mine on like 2 per page so that it's little. And then I can fold it and it fits in my planner this way. Yeah. So one reason why I came up with these 5 books is that from the time I started the 5x5, my 5 categories were theology, history. It started out as philosophy and it's become economics, literature, and education. And so, like I started off with those categories because I said, these are the books I keep buying, but not reading. But these are the things I need to know about, especially because I'm talking on Schole Sisters about these things. I need to be self-educated in these areas. And 5 books, especially 5 books a year, will do that. And so that is, I still am doing those categories. And these are 1 per category in those categories. So that's like my intellectual life, 5x5. And then, so last year I read 63 books. And the first year that we did a 5x5, I think I read 30. So I have incrementally increased every year. And so I have, they are all, I have 4 with categories picked, but I'm not going to read 100 books this year, especially not with these. But these are, it's like brainstorming. And like I said, this last year, politics and economics, I ended up putting together in a category. So this is like, I have then 20 categories, but I'm hoping to hit 75 books this year.
Very good. I have my, like the same categories that I have every year are Friends Don't Let Friends Read Alone, which encompasses a lot of my book clubs that I'm in locally. And so that's really helpful. I usually have a mentorship because I used to just make a 5x, but I'm always reading those books and I'm reading those in so much in depth that I really put those in their own category. And then theology, Christian life, and I always have the Bible going for the year. So I usually get to finish that, the Bible every year. And that's one of my books. And then I just love health and fitness. So even when I don't plan it, I always have probably about 5 books that I've read on health and exercise and fitness because it's just something that I enjoy. And now one of my son's is really into that too. So we're going to read a couple together or listen to them on audio together. And so that's really fun because he's pretty sure I don't know what I'm talking about sometimes. And so it's been really great having like, no, you're wrong. Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm like, find me the study, give me the research, dude. But here, read these in the meantime. So it's been really fun. And then I usually have a whim category because I often find books that are just delightful and I want to read. But this year, one of my fun categories is going to be education, but it's fiction. It's a fiction category. So that's going to be my fun one is I'm already reading The Chosen by Chaim Potok, and because it's one of my favorites in my literature class. And then there's a few others that I'm trying. Oh, Rector of Justice. Yeah. I need to put that one on there. Okay, that's great. Mm-hmm. But I have a few others that I'm coming up with. And so that's going to be really, really fun. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn was one of the lists that was going to be about education and things like that. Often a lot of people have said Little Men, but I just recently read that last year. So I don't know if I'm going to redo that one again, even though I love it, but I've read it probably like 6 times. So I probably don't need to read that one again. And then let's see if I had it. I think I wrote it down in my little notebook, my new reading notebook, because I wanted to think about this. Yes. So, yeah. Well, I did put it somewhere, but it's not right here. It's not coming to me right now. Maybe it's back here. See, I'm still getting myself organized here. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, Goodbye, Mr. Chips, which is about education and it's a short story. Hard Times was recommended by Dickens, but I don't know if I'm going to do that one and Bleak House. So I'm trying to decide if I want to.
Hard Times is not a big one. It's actually pretty short.
Okay. Well, then short for Dickens. Okay. And then I have the Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. And that was recommended by a good friend of mine who's probably the best read person in my local book group. And she's doing that one for her month this year. So I was like, oh, perfect. That'll work. Wheel on the School. I might reread that one aloud to my kids because that was a great one by Meinhert de Jong or whatever. We read it years ago and it was really good.
I love that book.
And then I just found a new book by Thomas Hardy and I got it at my library. But it's called Under the Greenwood Tree. And if you're a Shakespeare nerd, you know that in As You Like It, Amiens sings Under the Greenwood Tree. And so I recognized the title. I was like, oh, that's a Shakespeare reference. And so it's supposed to be this pastoral story, and it's not supposed to be depressing like a lot of Thomas Hardy is.
I was going to say, like, really?
Not supposed to be depressing. So we'll see. There is a happily ever after. So I'm very excited about this. And it's about the only marriageable woman in town or in this little village. So, and she has lots of suitors. So should be fun. But anyway, so I'm looking forward to that. And there's a couple other options, but I have a big list of things that I'm going to do. Oh yeah. Understood Betsy. That is a good idea, Kathy. Thank you.
Can you guys see me? Because I can't see me.
I can see you. Yeah.
Okay. I can't see me at all. So I wasn't sure if I was on screen or not. So I'm not going to share all of I have a lot of crossover categories with you guys, but one thing I was going to say is we moved to Texas last year. And so I am doing a Texas category. I thought about doing Texas history, and then I decided I wasn't sure I could handle, like, a lot of the books are super big, and I just wasn't sure that I could do that. So I decided to do novels set in Texas. So, like, and part of that is because the ladies at my local book club said I needed to read Missioners Texas, which is huge. It's huge. Really huge. So that's going to be like my big one.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do, I've actually never read Holes, which is like the kids book. Funny. So I was like, okay, so I'll do that. Like, I own it and I've never read it. My kids have read it. I've never read it. So some of them are things like that, but there's like Louis L'Amour set in Texas and Lonesome Dove and different things like that. So
are you going to read Lonesome Dove?
I am planning on it. Is that a bad idea?
No, it's big. It's just big.
Is it that big? I don't actually own it yet, so I don't know what I'm getting into.
It's like a paperback, and it's like this thick. It's pretty good size.
Well, maybe that one will be my audio that I do while I'm cross stitching or something.
Yeah. Well, and True Grit goes into Texas.
Oh, would you think that counts?
Yeah, I mean, it starts in Arkansas, but then it goes into Texas, and it's the majority of it happens in Texas, which is so great. And I love Charles Portis. I read that one last year again.
Oh, so, maybe I'll look at that then. Maybe that'll be more manageable.
Yeah, it's
Anyway, that's my one that's kind of more unusual for me because I kind of stick to reading in the same categories pretty much.
Yes. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I think we've answered all the questions, and maybe it is in Oklahoma, Elaine. I can't remember now. I know they can't cross for some reason. Maybe it's just because it's a Texas Ranger and he wants to take him back for that. That's where I'm getting confused. LaBeouf. Okay. You're right, Elaine. It's in Oklahoma. Good job.
You led me astray.
Darn it. I'm just always trying to push that book on people. So it's okay. All right. Well,
I'll read it time. How's that?
Thank you. You should. Yes. You're right. Yes, okay, I've been corrected. You're right.
And then Megan is saying, thank you for recommending Kristen Lavren's daughter.
Oh, she loved it, Abby.
That's
loved
what I was
it.
going to say. When you can make it personal, no one's going to make you read things. And I was like Kristen Lavren's daughter.
You haven't read it yet, have you?
It doesn't count. No, I haven't. So you can't make it. I'm going to secretly read it one year. I just don't know if this is the year yet. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This was so much fun, and I really appreciate everyone for being here. And may you have a wonderful 2025, and may it be a banner year for reading, whether it's the 5x5 or more. And we will check in Sistership. And thank you all so much for your participation. All right. We are going to end the stream. Bye.